what's on the screen sort of thing?
We don't use what's on the screen right now. We actually are using the webcam caption instead of Hangout because if you do it this way through YouTube, it has to be public, and we don't necessarily want our kids, just public streaming on the internet.
Yeah. There's some software that's really, 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 really awesome called Camtasia.
Camtasia?
C-A-M, Camtasia, Camtasia. And it does, I use it a lot because it can record the webcam plus what I'm doing on the screen.
Nice.
And it'll match the audio, and then you can just pick which stream of video you want. So if I'm doing this and talking, then I can switch back to the screen. It's really easy to use.
That's awesome. Okay, so we went through the first steps.
So now you try to make a page. That's probably good.
Yeah,
good
exactly.
Exercise.
So the very first thing under app, we had to go to, not controller yet, we had to go to view and set up a view, which will create a new page. Create a new page, and we'll call it test.scala.html. And this is going to be the actual page that's shown. Now, I'm always going to call main, because main is the actual initiation of the HTML file. And so I'm always going to say @main.
Yep.
And then I'm going to put in whatever the title of the page is, which is test page for now. And then that's basically being treated as a function that's going to pass through it the content, which in this case we could say is h1 I am a real page, and save it. And now let's compare that. Yep.
Good.
So that's going to go into main, which we don't have to do anything here because it's already expecting the parameters. And we go to index, and same deal. So we go back to controllers, and we say, okay, so I'm not going to, so I'll make a new public function. I'm not going to get rid of your help function. I'm just going to create a new one. But it's not going to be help, it's going to be called test. And I'm going to return, if everything is okay, test.render. And that's it. It's called test or test run?
Test, I think.
Yep, okay. So that's set up, and now the last step in getting everything working is to go to config and routes, and create a new route that says get/test. You tabbed it out, controllers.application.test, and there's no semicolon. Save.
I think if you put one, I'm not sure that it matters. So
right.
And then it's pretty forgiving.
Yeah. And then we go here to test, and it's going to recompile. I can see our kid, we're just after doing the HTML lessons, I can see our kids thinking it's broken, and hitting refresh over and over again, and then it's working.
It's wait, cool, perfect.
Okay, so that all makes sense. And as you said, there's some black boxes in there that I think just have to stay black boxes for the kids.
Yeah, nice.
And I think that the immediate result of I see that it works makes it comforting that you're setting this black box to the side.
Right. Power to display whatever you want to display.
Right.
And then, the next step would be forms, so that they can type something in and click submit, and then they can have a function where whatever they submitted comes back, and they can, let's say that it says, when was their birthday?
Right.
So they can type in, August, they can select August, 17th, 1997 or whatever.
Right.
And then they click submit, and then it'll go in, and they'll get month, date, and year. And they could write a function to figure out how old you are.
Right.
Right? And then they could spit out on the next page, you are, 14 years old.
Yeah.
That'd be a very good example of something basic to do to get those concepts.
So let's make a basic application that has a text field input. When you hit submit, it collects their name and then displays their name on the screen. Something like that, just to kind of see that user interactivity.
Sure.
So the first step So far we've just dealt with static text.
Right.
This is now going to, or even better yet, okay, if I have, like, let's say that I just want to use Java to iterate through like 1 through 10 and print it on the screen. Where now, instead of just having that static HTML being brought into Scala, I'm actually using Java.
Sure.
Am I still going to be inside of controller for that, application.java?
So go back to your view. So click on index.
Yep.
So see how at the top they've got @ and then in a bracket or in a parentheses message : and then string.
Yep.
So it's saying that this page or this function takes one parameter, a message. So let's go ahead and just copy that or put that in inside of help. Let's say.
This whole function?
Just the top part, just the @ message string.
Inside of help. So I'm going to put that above that?
Yeah. Very top line. So now we've said that the help, like this function, this page, takes this parameter. So now we can do something with it here. So let's say let's make it a paragraph. Message. So we're gonna whatever we get in, we're gonna put it in a paragraph right underneath help me.
Yep.
So just save that. And now when we go to, so if we try to compile it right now, if we try to run it, so let's actually try that. So if we go to help, we'll crash. But hopefully it'll tell us why.
Because it's trying to compile message, but there's nothing being sent to it as a message.
Precisely. Yeah.
So it's not going to show up blank. It actually gives you an error.
Right. So we have compile failed and not exactly the most helpful thing ever.
Yeah.
Though I'm pretty sure if we go in here, there we go. So here it's much more helpful.
Yes.
So whenever, don't
worry about that.
So you go in here and you say, it said, in this file, method render cannot be applied to the given type. So what did you pass in? What type of thing did you pass in? You passed in nothing. What was found was nothing. What was required was a string.
Right.
So it's not, it's programming. I think so. You all right? It's not the world's most straightforward thing, but it's fairly straightforward.
Right.
So let's go. Let's not click it. Actually, maybe let's click it. Yeah. So if you click it, it'll go there. So we see, okay, help was the thing that we messed up. So now, if you want to display, let's say we wanted to display like the numbers 1 through F. So first I'd say.
So we're still doing this in that help function. We don't have to build something new.
Right. We can all do it in help. So let's say string numbers equals a string. It starts with nothing.
So that should eliminate the error because it now is getting.
Well, not yet. So first we have to pass that in. So now we pass it in as a parameter, numbers. Now the error is gone. It's getting a string, but it's never.
We never passed it in.
So now the problem is solved. But now let's make it do what we want. So let's say we just want to say 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
So we can introduce like a for loop. So we can say for int I equals 0. I is less than 3 plus I. And for this one, then we can say numbers. Can you do plus equals? I don't think you can do plus equals with strings. We'll see. I can't remember if you can do that or not. Numbers plus equals, and we'll say since it'll start at 0, we want I plus 1. So now we're good. And we'll just do it this way for a change. So let's say I don't really care at this part yet. I just want to see if it compiles.
Right.
Because I wasn't sure if that actually works. I can't remember. You never really use this ID. It is pretty nice. Other than the lack of the code completion, it is pretty nice. It's all right there.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm intentionally using editors in our program that don't have code completion just as a teaching tool.
Yeah.
I'm sure that in high school we'll move away from that, but for middle school kids. So it doesn't look like there's any compile errors. That's promising.
That's nice. That looks like it worked.
Cool.
So
So
now,
then we can come up here and just hit refresh.
there you go.
Boom.
Now we got 1, 2, 3.
So, let me make sure that, because what I am truly most nervous about is, so like, I get how we can write this out, but obviously the troubleshooting is always twice as hard as the writing.
Absolutely.
And like, I can go back and make sure that I understand the logic that's going on here and like build a lesson that teaches kids that, and then when something goes wrong, I'm like going to be in trouble. And I have no idea what these Vanderbilt kids are going to be like. I have no idea if they're going to be like top notch at Java and be killing it, but I highly doubt it. Like, I think it's like year 1 and year 2 comp sci kids. So
Good thing is the first class at Vandy's Java, so that's a good.
okay, so
good start.
so they'll at
They
least
should
be
know the
learning
language.
the language,
Right.
right?
Now the framework, that may be a little tougher. Like they're probably not used to using stuff like
Right,
that.
but hopefully this will be easier. I mean, this seems like a
It's
pretty.
very straightforward. It's like you can get dangerous with it. I mean, it's like it's a toolbox if you want it to be. But if you,
Yeah.
if you just want, a screwdriver and a wrench, it can just be a screwdriver. And a wrench.
Right.
So it's,
Okay, so to reiterate, in our application we have a class called help,
a function.
just a function inside the class application. Got it. That function is being called here. Not there. Hold on, sorry.
So think about the user visits in the browser. They visit a page.
Right.
So what's the first thing that it needs to know about what the user just did?
So the very first thing it's going to do is go to routes and figure out where to point.
Yep.
Once it points it, in that case,
What does it point it to?
it's going to point it towards one of those Scala files under views.
Not quite. Almost.
Okay, let me go back to routes and look and make sure that I understand it.
Yeah.
It's pointing it to the function help in the application class.
Exactly.
Then, nope, sorry. In app under our class, it finds that function, says there it is, string is numbers, runs through, and then it's a blank string, and then we're adding 1, 2, and 3, and then we're returning. I still don't get okay. Why can we not just return help.render? Why do we have to say return okay help.render? That seems unnecessary.
You actually may be able to return index.render. I can't remember. I'm just used to using OK. Because you can also do things like show you what you can do. I just
Sure,
don't
sure,
remember
sure.
exactly what it is.
So return help.render numbers.
So I could return something like this. Public static result. It's close on foobar.
Sure.
I could return. Oops. Return error. And then I could, I don't even have to give it a page. I can just give it a message. I could give it a page, but instead, in this case, let's just give it a message. So let's say, man, I'm not used to using it. Not Mac. So hard. This page doesn't exist yet. So I could do that. And so what'll happen is this is more for the web browser's sake, because that's error. So that would it would still display in your browser, but any page you visit always has a code and the constant. And so OK is 200, and basically you're telling the browser like everything went perfectly correctly, and then error generally means like something went wrong. But there are other things you can do. So error will look the same, but there's one that's called like redirect. But this one we need to pass in a URL to. So let's send it to Google. So we'll call it Google, and then we can go into, say, we can go into the routes, and we can say get Google and take us to controllers.application.google and save it. And then now when we go here, double check if that's actually correct. Pretty sure it is. Yeah. It's working. Boom. Redirect to Google. So you can do OK. It's basically what you're telling their browser to do. Right. So OK means render it like normal. Error means something went wrong, but it still may render whatever you put in. Redirect will send them somewhere else.
Cool.
So actually, that's one of the things that when you're done with a form, so you have a get to get the contents of the form, what to show them, and then you've got another little post. So that's where you've got get there. So then you also have post. And so when you click the submit button, it'll call a function for post, and that's where you'll process what they've typed into the page.
Right.
And then at the end of most posts, you normally will do like a redirect to somewhere else.
Right.
Normally, because you'll redirect them to the thank you page or to the the next step.
So all of my backend stuff has been in PHP, where you have a separate PHP file that just purely processes a form. It gets the post data and then it sends them back to that original page. Same concept here, and then there's going to be like a file that's never actually displayed to the public. Its entire purpose is to process the form.
Exactly.
And that sends back whatever the result needs to be from that.
Exactly, and that'll be in here because it'll be just like this. It'll be public static. I actually haven't done a form in the last few days. Let me double check.
Sure. So if we make a form inside of, so let's take that test program, and so we could say text name equals first name, and have an HTML input form here.
Yeah.
Now, when we visit that test page, it's going to pull this function because that's, so we'll route it to that function. And now how do we, so we're not doing anything yet other than just rendering the page. But once they hit submit, which I need to add a submit button, that will be helpful. So this is all going to be just normal HTML, right?
Yep. So you also need to wrap it in a form tag because you have to tell it where it's going to go.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
And actually, I don't remember the HTML on that.
Method equals posts, and then I would normally type in action in a page. Is it going to be the same thing, or is there going to be something else because it's Java?
So there's two ways to do it. So you could actually hard code in the path itself. So if this was going to post to the same /test, you could hard code the path in there if you want to.
Okay.
Now the cool thing about Play is that it does a two-stage compiling process. So you can actually type at routes.application.postTest or whatever you call the function that we post.
Right.
Because then it'll go in and it'll say, when it's rendering this page, it'll go in and it'll say, okay, let me figure out what the URL to that function is. So then it'll look in the routes file and it'll say, oh, that function is mapped to /test, and then it'll inject /test there. That way, if you go in the routes file and you change, so instead of you wanted to post to /test, instead I want it to post to race cars.
Right.
Then now you only have to change it in the routes file. You don't have to change it here.
Interesting.
So it's kind of a trick to make it easier to refactor applications.
Right.
In our case, we're really not concerned with that kind of thing. So
so we can just
/test.
hardwire. So we'll just put in / post test.
Okay. So then now, yeah, that's good.
And is there anything else that we need to put in our form? Do we need to give it a name so that it can recognize it?
Yeah,
We'll just take anything. Should just take anything, right?
I think it's just
yeah. Okay. So now we need to create a.
Click save.
Yep. Sorry. Now we need to create. We don't need to create a new file here because it's nothing that's going to get shown.
Right.
But we are going to go to our application and we're going to create a new class.
A new function.
New function. Excuse me. Yeah. Now we already have text, which just renders text, which is initially what needs to happen. So we're not changing.
We want to show it first.
Right.
Exactly.
However, after they hit submit, where do we go?
So now we need to create a function that gets called when they submit it.
Got it, which we called post test.
Right. So then you create public static result post test.
Okay, so that's just completely outside of the original one. Public static result post test. Return. Now, before we return anything, we need to actually interpret the posting.
So I would type in request body, like capital R, capital B.
Request body.
Mm-hmm. And then call it whatever you want, like body, whatever you want to call the variable.
Okay.
Equals. And then request lowercase, like a function, request. And then 2 parentheses. And then dot, and then body, and then the same thing. So we're saying, okay, we want the request that you just sent, like the stuff. I want a variable that represents that stuff you just sent me.
And dot body only works because the form is only one element. If I wanted it to
body actually gets every. So the difference, that's the same thing as like the OK and the redirect. So that's like the code, and the rest of it's the body. So we're saying when we say body, we're saying, okay, I don't care about the rest of the request because there's like headers and all kinds of extra information. I just care about the meat.
So if I had multiple inputs here, I would still have this code exactly like that, but then the variable body would be like an array of every single input field that was there.
Right. It's an object that contains that stuff.
Got it. Okay.
So and I'm going to do this because I can't remember the exact function. So
Sure.
I have a form right here. So if I do this, let's see. So I can get as text. So this is a good way to do it at first. So as text will give me a string. So now we can say.
So I can just return.
Yeah, return
request body as text.
Right. Return and then OK, and then body dot as text.
And now.
Capital T on text.
If we, so I named that particular field first name. So just to sort of show how it differentiated, there are multiple inputs, would I type in like request body dot first name dot, no, because that's not a method.
So so unlike JavaScript, it doesn't know that stuff. It doesn't have like a variable called first name or anything like that. So it doesn't do that on the fly. Instead, it probably has like a map or like a dictionary in PHP or JavaScript or whatever that has boom, 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 boom. In fact, if I go back to this here and I just look at the code completion stuff, I can get as form URL encoded, so a map.
Right.
As, which is what I use for a trick. I can do it as JSON, I can do it as XML, as a raw buffer. There's lots of different ways. Just as a cheat, and it's actually really useful. When you look at models in Model View Controller. Thank you. So like I have a thing called a discount. This is for a bar app. So I have models, views, and controllers. So in my models folder, I have a discount. It's a thing, and so I know it has all these things in it, right? And so inside of my view, you can use a thing called a form helper, and you're telling it. So the action is you give it a function, and then I say generate an input field for start date, which is one of the things in discount start date. So this is kind of a more complicated way to do it, but like for instance, I can put like an annotation. I can put in my model. I can say at required or at optional. So then that way, when it generates the form and they click submit, but they don't fill out something that's required, it'll automatically say like, oh no, you forgot this field.
Right.
It adds a little bit of helper stuff to it.
So that would probably be over.
Probably a little overkill.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's
Sure,
something you could do. So like with this one, you say form.bind from request. So basically like create a form from that.
Yep.
And then whatever came into this function, I'm going to create one of those from what came in. And so it'll actually throw like the appropriate error if it'll actually never throw an error because that's the benefit of doing it in Java is it's kind of like hardwired. So it'll never throw an error. You're basically saying, I know that everything ever posted to this will be a discount. And so it can automatically put one together based on that. And then after that, I can call discount.discount it now, just like you were trying to do there. That's kind of the trick to getting that working.
Without going through that process, though, if the kids just, because, I mean, they won't have even learned, like, the HTML of it, much less going into this. And we can show them, like, the HTML, like, giving it a name attribute, but, like...
There's a simpler way to do this. There's a way you could do...
like, if we had...
So try this. So at the very bottom, let's say, of this, so after any of these functions.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Not in Dynamo. To say public static class form. Make it lowercase class. So we're gonna make a class inside.
Okay.
And then take the parentheses out.
Got it.
And then say like public string first name, and then a semicolon. And then make a capital S on the string. So now let's in test we're gonna do so we're gonna try this trick. So we'll save this and we'll go back to test real quick, and we're gonna modify it a little bit. So views test. So here in test we'll go ahead and we'll add. So we're gonna add at, and we're gonna call it form, and it's play.data.form, and then in a bracket, form, because that's what we called our thing. So we're going to pass in that class we just made. We're going to pass in one of those into this thing. And this lets us use that helper. And so we can say, then we can get rid of these things. And we can say at helper.form, and then actually I need to put action. You can do routes.application.post test. So now we're saying, okay, I want a form, and when you're done, call post test, and then inside of the form.
When you're done is when they hit submit.
Right, exactly. We're going to create an input. So this is where we put our stuff. So input type equals text. Name equals, and then you get, I think this is where you get benefit. Whatever, name equals first name. Yeah, name equals first name. And then input type equals submit. So now, if you put it in that, then what we can do is we can pass in that object, and we can use that helper thing. So it's a little more black boxy, but it'll save us some effort. So now, does this make sense, kind of what you're doing? You're saying there's this form helper, and it'll help generate this form. And we're going to pass in a form, and the type of the form is that object we made in here.
The code itself is not complicated, but
why it's doing what it's doing
is, yeah. Like, everything that you're saying makes sense. and like I can anticipate what the outcome would be and could probably even recreate it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no idea like what's actually going on under the hood, and like if I would have a very difficult time making variations on it. I would have a very difficult time now making like a newsletter sign up with a checkbox, or like
Okay, that's fair.
because I feel like everything that changes is a different black box that I haven't learned yet.
That's fair.
And so for the students, I want to make sure like I want to try and avoid as many black boxes as possible, and I know that that can't be done entirely.
That's fair.
Because I want them to be able to go home and work on it,
right.
to make changes and do something different.
You may be, and so you may be able to. I just don't, I'm not entirely positive. You may be able to get rid of that @helper form thing, and you might be able to do the same thing like without that. In this case, you'd type like form, and so we have this form down here. We should actually not call that form. Form 2, because it'll get confused if they're the same thing. So form 2, form equals. Form dot form 2 dot class. So you're saying give me a form where the elements are going to be like what's inside of this thing. I think we have an extra.
We don't have to provide one for the submit button.
Right, you don't have to provide anything for the submit button. And then here we said that we'd.
So form is a built-in function that's a part of that helper class.
Exactly.
And then why are we using the carrots? That's an interesting syntax.
So it's called a parameterized class. So it's the same thing how a function takes a parameter, like redirects takes a URL as the parameter. Well, so this is a class, and it could it's a form. It's kind of like a paper form, right? So I could give you a tax form, or I could give you a sign-up form. So it's the type of form.
Okay.
So our form it's a form 2. So let's make it more straightforward. We'll call it sign-up. Sign up form.
Yep.
That'll give it more meaty.
Right.
So I'll do the same thing here. Sign up. So we're getting a form of type sign-up form. Does that make more sense now?
And that's built in. The
form is
form
something
we
that's built
created,
in, right?
And then, whereas that form is a variable,
right?
That is going to.
So we're passing it into the test page, right? So we go back to test. So it's coming up here. Now this is sign up. So it's here.
Yep.
And so might have skipped one. Actually, this is why this can get. No, actually, it's good. So you actually probably didn't even need to pass that in. Actually, you may not need to do that at all. Hold on, I apologize for the slowness in this. I haven't done this in a couple weeks. Let's actually get rid of that. You're right, that is confusing. I think we can get rid of it. Let's go back and change that. Okay, so we're back to what we were. So we're rendering that page as it was with nothing. But now because we have this thing called sign up form and it has first name, which is the same thing that we have inside of our view. Test. So we have our form has first name as a field and then submit and it's text. So since we have the same thing here in the side of our sign up form, I'm pretty sure this should allow us to say. This will allow us to do that. Where we do form sign up form equals form sign form.class. So we're gonna this is like a blank form, and then what we'll do is we'll say then we'll make a filled out version of it. That's like a good analogy is that we'll make a filled out version of it. So filled out form equals form dot bind from request dot get. So we're saying, okay, because that's the first name was posted into here, so we're gonna take that form, use what they put in the page, fill it out, and then give back a sign up form. So now then we can say here, we don't have to say body as text, we can say return okay, oops. Actually type hello, comma, plus filled out form dot first name.
Let's try and do that.
Okay. So, and then we need to save that. But then the last step is the routes. So now we need to say routes.
But we already have one set up to test, don't we?
To get it. So now we need the one for the form. Post test. And this should go to controllers.application.postTest. Because we have
so it knows when I hit submit to go look for a post.
Submit is post. If you type it in your browser, it's get. If you click submit, it's post. So now we go to localhost 9000 test. You can also see what it's doing at the same time. Oops, so we have a couple errors. So I forgot to import form and request body. I forgot to import those into the top. And this is something where we could technically supply them with everything already imported, so they don't have to worry about that step. So up here we've imported something, but play.mvc.http or play.data.form. So there's import play.data.form. So that's how we have that class there. And then the same thing for import play.mvc. No, it just needs to be HTTP. We don't use those anyway, so we can get rid of that line. Let's just comment it out.
So why do we not need request button?
We never use that variable anywhere.
Got it, because now we're
using the
sign up form to get the first name.
Right, yeah, we're using that. Those two lines will do it instead. That's probably the easiest, because the other way you have to do stuff with maps and things like that.
Yeah.
And if you can kind of make the analogy that it's kind of like a blank piece of paper, and then you're filling out the piece of paper, and then you're handing it to somebody, if you can make that analogy that that's what it's doing right there, then I think it makes sense. I think it's easier to think about. So let's try that again. So we'll watch let's see what it's doing this time.
Cool.
Oh, so cool. So now we have this. So now if we type in Zach, click submit. Hello, Zach.
Okay.
And notice the difference. So go back to the code and in here. So that we did an alternate way of displaying something. So in this case, we returned OK, but instead of calling one of our pages and rendering it, I just passed in a string. So it outputs exactly that, just text.
Right.
So if you want to make something really simple where you don't have the page part, you can do this. So almost in the very first time you show this, if you can show it in pieces, because the very absolute minimum amount of things that you need is the route to point to a function, and then return OK, and then some quoted text.
You don't even have to
You don't
deal
even have
with
to have
the view.
The page is like the next step in the progression.
Yeah, okay, so, first of all, let me make sure I'm completely clear on this.
Mm-hmm.
The route sent it to the page of the form. Let me make sure that I remember our last state of that. Okay, so the @helper, this is not the same as the form class that we imported in the application.java.
Right, so what this does is...
How is this different than that?
So see how I put routes.application.postTest? I gave it a function.
Yep.
So remember how we put /test, so it would go to like local, it would post there. So this thing, it does that reverse routing thing. So no matter what your routes file says, this helper will automatically fill in. It'll make that like the form, the HTML elements correctly. Like actually, if we go back here and we do a view source, see how it made the action test, the method post.
Perfect.
It automatically generated that. Now
that's awesome.
If we go into routes and we change it and we say, you know, we want the post to be test OMG, and we save it, and now we go here and we wait for it to recompile. You can close that.
Yeah,
so
because you changed it in routes.
Because I changed it in routes, now if we view the source to this page, we'll see test OMG there.
Right.
So it means that you didn't have to change it twice.
Right.
So it's just a little, it's an advantage for stuff like that. Do you have to do it? No, you could replace it with just that line before.
But the point is, you want all of your routing in one place so that you're not having to like open files and try and remember where something was sent.
It's, since you said it's kind of like PHP, it's trying to get over that problem that PHP has where you use a lot of static, like slash this, slash that. It's kind of their solution to that problem, is that if it's a URL, it only goes in that file.
Got it. So now, and the @helper.form, that is something that just is a part of the Java library. That's not something special that got imported anywhere in our actual program.
It's part of Play. So in these templates, so just like in the Java file, the application, when we had to say import this to get it in there, so Scala works like just this technically. It works a little bit differently. Like you don't have to import anything. It'll go figure out what you wanted. So helper.form is some class somewhere in Scala or in the.
So if you were inside of like the IntelliJ or Eclipse or something like that, and you type @helper.form.
If I type @helper, it gives me all kinds of choices because it already knows. It knows it's actually views.html.helper. It already knows what it is.
So even though that's a part of Scala and not default in Java, any Java application is going to know to go to that Scala library, like whether or not you're rendering on an Android device or a web browser. If it sees @helper, it's going to say, "Oh, that's Scala," and go find it.
Yeah, well, because all that stuff's happening on the server. It's all happening inside of here.
Right.
It's not happening on the Android or anything like that. The Android only sees the final result.
Got it.
So.
Okay.
It's kind of confusing because it does use two languages at once, which is kind of a pain. But luckily, like this, you don't really need to know Scala. You just need to understand like occasional, like just how to pass parameters in is like probably the number one thing. Like how do I pass in the first name or the page title, stuff like that.
So this is saying, "Hey Scala, get the form helper, and then go to the routes page."
Right.
And then application.posttest is where
it's gonna go.
It's gonna go.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Thank you.
So after that, it tells it what parts of the form need to be created, and the @helper is going to take care of the rest. Now this application.posttests, which is here, now let me make sure. So this page, test or whatever, we're not actually ever calling that. because we're returning just a string. We're not actually going somewhere.
Well, so
That's where I'm getting hung up.
Sure, yeah. So what your browser does is when you hit, so whenever you're, so get and post, they're verbs, like they're called HTTP verbs.
Yeah.
And so your browser actually, get is the one that everybody is familiar with on the web, because get means go get something.
Right.
And so when you call it, it's a one-way street. So you're getting something and it's returning something.
Yep.
Post means, here, take all these things that I have, and I'm going to give them to you.
Right.
And then I'm going to get something back in return. So actually, when you click
this is
submit,
actually making a page.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay.
Exactly.
This is just making the page where
It's
this
making-
basically gets compiled. Is that correct?
So we'll go through the whole thing. So this is get test,
Mhm.
and I type in Ryan. And now when I click this, I'm doing post test OMG.
Right.
And then what's getting returned is instead of the page, because we're just returning the string instead.
It's when it gets to that page, the only thing it does is call that function, because here we tell it go to application and run
Yes,
that function.
precisely. Exactly.
So you tell it the page to go to, and then you tell it what function to run on that page.
Mhm.
And then
Don't think of these as pages. They're URLs. They're
URLs.
paths or URLs or
Right.
addresses or like whatever you want to call it.
So when that URL is called,
Mhm.
do this function.
Exactly. That's
And-
what routes does. That's all it does and only what it does.
Then that function gets called, so we go to our application. There's the function. Form is a special library that we imported up here. Is library the correct terminology?
Part of the library, yeah.
Okay. And then sign up form is just a class that contains
First name.
one property
It's
called first
the
name.
same thing that we put on our form on our page.
Yep.
Just the Java version of that.
And so if we change this, it would no longer be able to find it because
Exactly.
the name does
The
not
name is
match the.
changed. Exactly.
And then this is, so we're telling it it's
you
a
can-
form
you
with
can
that
say
property.
It's like a blank form.
Yep. So this is the blank form.
And then the sign up form is we're telling it what's on that form.
Yep. So now we know that this is a form because we just defined it as one. Now use the method form, find sign up form. Okay,
That's the thing that it says, okay, make a blank form that has these things on it.
Yep.
And then so that's what it has. That's what form is.
So I could make this any name,
Right.
and then if I change that, I would have to change it here as well.
No, because this is just a function here. It's form. It's a static function.
Okay.
So it's just you're saying make a form object with the fields that are in this side of this class.
So anytime you're making a form, you're going to have uppercase form dot lowercase form.
Yep.
Got it?
Yep.
So now sign up form.
So this is an instance of this class, right?
Which is
So
the
it's-
filled out version.
Right, because we're saying bind from request dot get. So bind from request is saying, okay, I have this blank form in my hand, and then I have the data that the person just posted, like their first name. So I want to grab that and I want to put it inside of the form. So then, at that point, you have so technically that's the filled out form.
Yep.
And then now you want to take that filled out form and you call .get because that's what says, okay, now that I have the filled out form, I want to actually construct one of these things,
Right.
a sign up form.
And now this is that instance. So I would change it here.
Right, exactly. Precisely.
Find request,
Mhm.
get it, then return hello, go to the filled out form and find, what would this be called? The variable or
Yeah.
the class?
Mhm. So it's a class. It's just a class inside of another class. So you could also do something like this. So you could have sign up. Oops. So you could have a method called public string say hello, and you could actually have this return hello plus first name plus, let's change up a little bit. So now you've given the sign-up form, it has a function called say hello. So now, instead of just getting the first name, I could say return, and I could take this out, and I could say return filled out form dot say hello. And so now that I change it like that, does the flow of that still make sense?
Yeah, so we just created an instance of sign-up form and pre-populated those values
Yep.
with the information that was got
Mm-hmm.
through our find form request
Yep.
of the final form, which was the form created of the sign-up form.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I'm now, that makes sense, and now I'm trying to think teaching it.
An analogy of like a blank form, and literally maybe even having pieces of paper to like put tape like
Yeah.
paper and marker and then taping it on the board and walking through. I think that might make the most sense because it makes it intuitive.
Yeah.
And then you could even have kids stand up and like act it out.
Right.
Actually, that's actually really not a bad idea for like an interactive thing to get people to stand up, is to act out what's happening.
Yeah, they would definitely need to. Yeah.
Because now when I changed it to this, where it's using this function, that makes, to me, it makes a little less sense. Like, why does the sign-up form have a function inside? Like,
Right.
That one doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I was just showing that it's possible.
I agree with you.
But then, let's...
That makes a lot of sense now.
Right.
So, like, I could teach this. Like, if we had...
Because, like, when you do it this way, you can have, like, two people stand up at the board with, like, pieces of paper on a chalkboard or something, and you can have them kind of, like, write, you can have them, like, talk it out and write it out. So the first the kid who's the phone or the computer or whatever says, I want the test page.
Right.
And the other kid would yell, hi, person, or hi, tell me your first name.
Yeah.
And the person says, my name is John. And then he'll write down on a piece of paper, or on the board, on a piece of paper, he'll write down John, and he'll hand him the piece of paper. So that's like him posting the information.
Right.
And then, the other kid will have like a printed form that says first name, it's going to underline. And so he'll take it and he'll write down John inside of it.
Yep.
And then because that corresponds to
the bind form
bind
request.
line, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And the form.form, maybe that's you, the instructor, giving him the piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if you can kind of link it back to like actions.
I think some of like the built-in stuff is what's going to be tricky to like come up with the analogy for, but I definitely think that's the right way to do it. And so like day one, how are we doing on getting a volunteer for the September 20th?
Good. How many do we need? It's just one, right?
So Vanderbilt has changed something up on us, and they have said that they think it's going to be easier on their end to send people to us every Friday instead of us going to them, which is fine. But that makes me think that we should just do this at Nashville Prep, so we would only have one location, in which case I think 2 volunteers would be ideal. I mean, obviously, like, more merrier, but if we had, like, one person that was up front, like, delivering, and one person that could be out and about helping, when hands go up, that would be a great combo.
Absolutely. So from our national user group, we got this feedback. So I had 3, this lady actually was super interested. She was very interested in helping. I can't remember exactly what she does. She came up to me after, was talking to me for 5-10 minutes about it.
Sweet.
And this person, Ryan, the other Ryan, he was a year ahead of me at Manti, and he does a lot of web development stuff. So this stuff should be easy for him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that he's used this particular framework, but they're not super far from each other. So, and then this guy, he seemed younger as well. So he was younger and he was kind of talkative. I didn't really get to talk to him for very long, but they both said yes. And then we have a lot of babies. So maybe a little bit of convincing. And I emailed this morning a guy named Scott McIntosh, who's part of the Nashville Tech Meetup, which is a huge group.
Yeah.
And so I sent him out like a blurb that I wrote up about it to send out to all of his guys. So I told him to let me know when he sent that out and like what exactly he sent out.
So definitely. So this is like in general, are you interested? And then we'll use this to come up with our September 20th people.
Yeah, and I think especially if we have three people that are good, that means, and I'm sure it probably will be at the first one at least. Make sure I get one of us at each.
Yeah. So I think that first one, the goal is going to be just navigating the play frame. I don't know if we're going to, I think this is like the second one, the October session.
Okay.
I think the first one, and if you disagree, please let me know.
No,
just in like my experience of like seeing this, like I think that first of all, just understanding MVC is going to be something new to them. That like I think the better I still haven't had like a great explanation. Like I just sort of figured it out by like reading other stuff. But just getting an explanation of like why that even exists in the first place and what's the difference between a control and a view, and like helping differentiate those. Because definitely, once again, coming from PHP, that's just like everything. There is no control and no view. I mean, it's just all a mess. Like it took me a minute to figure that out. I think the kids will benefit as well from seeing that.
And luckily, like, so we can start out with so just how that one returns okay, and then just a string. It doesn't have the view associated.
Right. That
so
really
I think the very first thing we should do is like the control plus the route.
Yeah.
And just show them how, like, get them like set up, and then get them comfortable with like, I want to make a new one that displays this, like hello John, or I'm hungry, or whatever they want to display.
Static HTML pages where they're making
even
not HTML, but yeah, like static pages where they like
text.
route to a basic function, and that function returns some text.
Because then you could even go with you can do kind of simple things. So you can do like a for loop. So you can have them make 1, 2, and 3 and return like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
and
they will have not had. So they at that point, think about a curriculum. So they will have been using Scratch.
Okay.
As just part of the general introduction class. Right around mid-September, they start their first ever unit just on Intro to HTML and CSS. And then the last month and a half of the semester, so like late October, they go back to Scratch, but they're actually doing a lot more kind of, all of the lessons are either like building games that like deal with user input and have like variables for school. They start getting a little bit deeper like concepts, and they also have some activities that are like more algorithm based, like creating FizzBuzz or something like that. It's like just a little bit more like programming oriented. And then second semester they start JavaScript. So September, I mean, when we get, like, they will have not seen a for loop outside of just using loops inside Scratch. They'll get the concept, but not the syntax.
Okay.
So it'll be, I think that's perfect to do something real simple.
Especially if we do stay inside of this file and the routes file for the very first one and never get outside of that.
Yep.
That's probably a good thing.
Absolutely.
Because that shows, like, they'll understand how to, like, if then.
Right.
Because then you can say, int x equals 4 and y equals 7. If x is greater than this, show this, and if x is less, else, show that.
Yeah, just the pure. Yeah, that's perfect.
Very simple stuff.
And I think that if we had talked about this Saturday thing being like a 3-hour thing, so if we spend the first hour getting it installed and just helping them figure out like, click on code, compile, run, like what those different options are. And then the next hour explaining the routes, what the controller is, how they work together. And the last hour then doing some projects like printing out different names, going through variables, loops, conditional statements, yada, yada, yada. That's a great September 20th session. And I'm not even worried about October yet. I think that if you can lock in those volunteers there, and then the only other question is, so then the next 3 weeks, they're going to have stuff on Friday. And I think that getting into the view and the form is October. Okay. So those next 3 weeks, we'll need some activities for them to do with the Vanderbilt kids. Mm-hmm. That it's just what they've already learned, but repetition and maybe like pushing.
So if we provide them with a file, so going back to the kind of choose your own adventure game.
Yeah. If
we can go back far enough to make them like write their own adventure thing, because then you can make it all like. We can make a couple helper functions that'll something where they can say so index, so they might return three, or what do we call it, story dot 2 choices, and they might have the first thing they'll do is the question. Do you like, chocolate or not? Question mark. And then, so we write this helper thing, the helper class called story, let's say. So do you like chocolate or not? And then their first answer is yes, and their second answer is no. And though yes and no is actually is not a super good one, but let's say that we write it so that if they say yes, then it'll go to /yes or something like that.
Can we do that without them having seen the views yet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because then it's just the route, so whatever the route is for /yes. So
Got
if
it.
they make
Okay.
a function then called public static result yes, then it'll show that question and then it'll show underneath it yes and no. Because we'll generate the view part for the yes and no, like what actually makes that link.
Got it.
That'll be the helper that they don't need to see. So then they can have if this you can have a story dot pick a number or story dot and maybe give them like 2 or 3 types of inputs they can pick from.
So we would have to make our own class though called story
Right.
that deals with all that.
Right.
Okay, interesting.
Maybe I'm not sure if that's a way that we can.
Yeah, no, I'm just
It's
thinking
like what's the
different
minimum number?
ideas.
If maybe we can make like story dot 2 choices or story dot pick a number, and then it just gives them a form where they can pick 1 through 5 or something. And then
Right.
Because then in the next they click the 1 through 5 or whatever. Then we can make it like this where it'll have int number.
Yeah.
So then they could say if number equals 1, then do this. If
Right.
number equals 2, that way you can introduce them to for loops and or you could also have Boolean like chocolate or whatever. That way we can get them into if then, because you have Boolean, so you can do if this then that, or if not this. And if you have integers, you can do for loops. So that way you kind of get into the simple things. So maybe we give them like story dot 2 choices and story dot pick a number.
Yep. And those are just 2 different views, one with the drop-down list and one with the text field, and we'll handle the back end and they put, okay.
Mm-hmm. That way they can write their own, choose their own adventure app and kind of see how it works.
Yeah.
Not super complicated, something like that.
Cool. All right.
I'll,
Well, this has been unbelievably helpful. And I really appreciate you taking your time
Yeah,
out
no problem.
and working with me on it and helping me get ready to then work with them on it. Our next steps are to make some kind of PowerPoint or just something that is the structure for the volunteers. I don't want... So, my ideal situation would be to provide them with what to do for those 3 hours, and then if they are ambitious and want to make variations that they think are appropriate, awesome. But if
Right.
not, I don't
I
want
think
to
that's the way
ask
to
someone
do
to
it,
volunteer and then be like, now write a 3-hour curriculum.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a little tough.
So, I will build the initial structure of it, send it to you, and then if you can check it and be like, that's not right, or whatever, and add in clarifying points, sort of build on it. I think that collaboratively that would be the best way to go.
Sure.
I don't mind doing the legwork on it, obviously. I just am not
Yeah, and
sure
I
of
don't
my
mind helping with-
competency.
I don't mind helping with some of the PowerPoint style stuff. That's
Yeah.
That's,
And one other thing I need to ask you about.
So I think, and this might also be good. So along with doing the game, this is for some work presentation. I don't know what you think, but I think when dealing with things like this, because it's a lot of complicated flow of stuff. So I do a lot of presentations that look like this, where you do kind of the arrows going places, and that way you can always go back and you can always revisit the steps and you can look at it.
Right.
It kind of keeps building, so you can think about it. So especially a lot of with the like, okay, my computer's doing something and it's sending something somewhere and all this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I am absolutely fine with making, however, if you want me to make them more pretty or whatever, slides or things like that, like whatever you think would be good
Right.
teaching material. I very much enjoy designing some of that stuff too. So
Sweet. Well,
whatever
yeah.
you want to offload to me. Like,
I'll put it in as a Google presentation, and that way we can both edit on it and
Okay,
without
cool.
having to deal with revisions, and that'll be perfect.
Sweet. Yeah, that sounds great.
There is a guy who does some mobile development here in Nashville. His name is Will. I'm trying to remember his last name. I have it in my email. And he really wants to take on as much of a leadership role
Oh, cool.
as he can in the Friday stuff, every single week.
Okay, yeah.
And so I definitely want to get you guys in touch. And I wish that I had bookmarked his email before getting here. He's another friend of Lee's, so I wasn't sure if you knew him or not. Damn, I can't find.
Schreiber. Will Schreiber?
Yes. You know him?
Yeah.
So I just met him for the first time. Oh, cool. I just met him for the first time a couple weeks ago, and he was super excited about helping out. And if he wants to be the point person on the Friday things and coordinate the Vandy volunteers, that's fine with me.
Awesome.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And then you guys, if you guys already know each other, that's just a whole awesome thing.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Okay.
Um,
And I didn't tell him your name. I believe I just said the Nashville Mobile Development Group. I'll make sure to let him know that that's...
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I think what might be helpful, especially if we can think up an agenda of some stuff to work on, and we can make something like a Saturday working session or something where we can get together for a few
Couple
hours
and
yeah,
put it all together.
and really work on some stuff. I think that would probably be pretty good.
Yes.
I don't know how you work. That's for me, sitting down for 3 or 4 hours to work on one
definitely.
thing. It tends to get the most done for me.
Is there a time during the week that you can do it, or does it need to be a Saturday?
I could probably do it during the week.
Is Saturday a lot easier for you?
Saturdays, much just having a job. Saturdays.
Yeah.
Normally Saturday helps.
Okay. Let's.
Hey, Saturday or Sunday.
Right.
Those are the best. That or evenings normally works fine with me as well.
Yeah.
After work hours.
Saturday's a lot easier for me than Sunday. Okay, so let me email Will.
Okay.
Make sure he's 100% on board. We haven't quite locked everything down, and then maybe shoot for August. Does August 16th work for you?
Most likely, yeah. Let me double check that. Yeah, should.
Not this Saturday, but the next one. What time works well for you?
All day. Nothing that day right now.
How early do you get up?
6.
Okay, cool. So morning's not an issue. Good.
Not as early as you want to get up.
Yeah. I'm an early fella as well. All right. So right now, we are going to check with Will and meet August 16th, I said? August 16th. Hours. We will lots of to go. Is locking down volunteers for September 20th.
What time is it? What time and exactly where it's at? Those are two things that I need to tell them.
It is, we're going to say 9 to 12 at Nashville Prep, which is, the address is on their website.
Gotcha.
For September 20th. 12.
It was that?
September 20th.
20.
Yeah, let me quadruple check and make sure that is the Saturday.
Just I tried Evernote in college. Now I'm trying Evernote again.
How's that working for you?
I've learned. I just like it depends on like what I'm doing, like what kind of an assortment of projects. Because like most like for all during college, the first year out of college, like I was like just a straight to-do list. Like I was very good at just a to-do list. Like,
Yeah.
I have a huge to-do list, but it works really well. But now, like for some reason, there's just stuff where I have like a bunch of notes I need to like keep in order to keep everything straight. So now I'm trying to like transition to using this instead. We'll see if it works out.
I've been using Trello for that lately.
Oh yeah.
With success, I've enjoyed that. I'm like constantly going back and forth between like my Chromebook and this and my Mac.
Yeah.
And so like I can't do things that are not like very smoothly cross-compatible with like different operating systems.
Yeah. That's me too.
That's been my own. That's like my number one reason for like relying on Google
That's
for
why
everything.
I always use this. Is like it's just a website. Remember the mill?
Cool.
It works on. They also mostly have apps for stuff, but the website works on your phone. It
Super
works on
easy,
this.
wherever. Yeah.
Yes, it's literally just a to-do list.
Okay, so yes, September 20th. Starting the presentation for the first day. And
If you can come up with the kind of what you think would be a good idea for that first day project, like content-wise, I guess, I can help write like the story concept. Like if we want to do that, I'll write that in class and try to make it as stupidly simple as possible to use, where you don't need to teach anything. You just tell them like, if you type this, this is what's going to show up on the screen, sort of thing. It's a little black boxy, but it's black boxy. They can double click it and look and see what it's doing.
Right.
If they want to learn, actually, that'd probably be a good thing for like the third Friday or like the last Friday. Would be to now we're going to see what was happening. We're going to lift up the
hood,
the curtain,
see.
right?
Because the story class is not or function. It's not going to be complicated.
Right.
And that might be a cool introduction, like the next Saturday.
It'll either be intro to views, because there'll be some HTML in there, like a link tag.
I love that. That's great. The more that you can like keep it going and like loop back and be like, this is what we did, but now here's like this other part that built in.
Here's why it did that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
What, how, why, cycle.
Sweet. All right. Well, I'll send this out. That's just my notes from the day, and we'll get everything else started. And I'll get in touch with Will about August 16th.
Okay.
Dude, thank you so much. It's so appreciated.
Yeah,
this is awesome. Up.